Welcome to today's episode, where we're diving deep into a topic that affects millions, but rarely gets the honest conversation it deserves. I'm talking about the 5 shocking truths that seniors face after turning 70. Truths that society often keeps hidden behind polite smiles and well-meaning but ultimately unhelpful platitudes about aging gracefully. If you're approaching this milestone birthday, already past it, or have loved ones in this stage of life, this episode will give you the real talk you need to hear. We're not here to sugarcoat anything today because knowledge is power, and understanding what lies ahead can make all the difference in how you navigate these years with dignity, purpose, and yes, even joy. Let's start with shocking truth number 1, and this one hits hard because it challenges everything we've been told about retirement and the golden years. The first shocking truth is that after 70, your social circle doesn't just shrink, it collapses at an alarming rate. And this isn't just about friends moving away or losing touch. We're talking about a systematic erosion of social connections that happens faster than most people anticipate, and with consequences that extend far beyond feeling lonely on weekends. Here's what really happens and why it catches so many seniors off guard. When you hit 70, you're entering what researchers call the compound loss phase of aging. This means you're not just dealing with 1 or 2 isolated changes in your social life, you're facing multiple simultaneous losses that compound each other's effects. Your work colleagues disappear almost overnight because retirement doesn't just mean leaving your job, it means leaving an entire social ecosystem that provided daily interaction, shared purpose, and professional identity. Think about it. For decades, work wasn't just where you earned money, it was where you had colleagues to chat with, problems to solve together, meetings that gave structure to your days, and a reason to get dressed and leave the house 5 days a week. All of that vanishes, and while retirement planning focuses on financial readiness, almost no one prepares seniors for the social isolation that follows. But the collapse goes deeper than work relationships. Your peer group starts experiencing what gerontologists call accelerated mortality, which is a clinical way of saying that friends and family members begin dying at an increasingly rapid pace. The casual acquaintances from your neighborhood, the people you'd wave to at the grocery store, the folks from your church or community center, they start disappearing one by one. And here's the part that really catches people off guard. Each loss doesn't just subtract one person from your social circle, it often eliminates entire social clusters. When your best friend passes away, you might also lose regular contact with their spouse, their adult children who you'd grown close to over the years, and the social activities you used to do together. It's like losing a keystone in an arch. The whole structure starts to crumble. Meanwhile, your own health issues begin limiting your ability to maintain the relationships that remain. That weekly dinner group becomes impossible to attend when driving at night becomes dangerous. The hiking club is off limits after your knee replacement. The volunteer work you loved becomes too physically demanding. Each health change doesn't just affect your body, it affects your social connections, creating what researchers call a cascade of social losses. And society makes this worse with ageism that's so pervasive, most people don't even recognize it. Younger family members start treating you differently, often with well-meaning but patronizing concern that makes you feel like a burden rather than a valued family member. Store clerks speak louder and slower. Waiters direct questions to younger people at your table, even when you're clearly the one paying. These microaggressions accumulate into a message that you're less relevant, less capable, and less worthy of full social engagement. The shocking truth is that this social collapse happens regardless of how socially active you were in your younger years. Extroverts and introverts alike find themselves facing unprecedented isolation, and the solutions that worked in midlife, like joining clubs or making new friends through work, are no longer available or effective. This brings us to shocking truth number 2, and this one will fundamentally change how you think about aging and independence. After 70, your relationship with your own body becomes a daily negotiation with an increasingly unreliable partner. And I'm not talking about the obvious things like needing reading glasses or having less energy. I'm talking about a profound shift in bodily autonomy that most people never see coming. Your body stops being the reliable machine you've counted on for 7 decades and becomes something more like a moody teenager, unpredictable, sometimes defiant, and requiring constant attention and accommodation. Here's what this really looks like in daily life. You wake up in the morning and have to conduct what I call the body assessment. How are the joints feeling today? Is that pain in your back the same as yesterday or something new to worry about? Are you dizzy when you stand up? Do your hands have the dexterity needed for the tasks you planned? This isn't hypochondria, it's survival planning, because your body has become unreliable in ways that can be genuinely dangerous. The shocking part isn't that aging brings physical changes. Everyone knows that. The shocking part is how these changes force you into a completely different relationship with risk, independence, and planning. Simple activities that you've done thoughtlessly for decades suddenly require strategic thinking. Taking a shower becomes a calculated risk assessment involving grab bars, non-slip mats, and timing it for when someone else is home just in case. Driving to the grocery store requires evaluating your alertness, reaction time, and whether the weather conditions are within your current capabilities. Climbing stairs means considering not just whether you can make it up, but whether you'll be able to make it back down safely. But here's where it gets really psychologically challenging. Your mind often feels as sharp as ever, maybe sharper in some ways because experience has given you wisdom and perspective. You can analyze complex problems, offer valuable insights, and make sound decisions about many aspects of life. But your body might not be able to execute the actions your mind wants to take. This creates a frustrating disconnect between mental capacity and physical capability that can feel like being trapped in a failing machine while your real self remains fully present and aware. The medical system makes this worse by treating elderly patients as collections of symptoms rather than whole people dealing with this complex new reality. Doctors focus on individual problems, the heart condition, the arthritis, the balance issues, without addressing the holistic challenge of learning to live in partnership with an aging body. They'll prescribe medications for each symptom, but rarely discuss the bigger picture of how to adapt your daily life, maintain dignity, and preserve as much independence as possible while acknowledging new limitations. Family members often respond to this physical unreliability by moving immediately to protective mode, wanting to wrap you in bubble wrap and eliminate all risks from your life. While this comes from love, it often accelerates the loss of independence rather than helping you adapt to new circumstances. The shocking truth is that after 70, physical independence isn't about maintaining the same capabilities you had at 50, it's about developing new skills in risk assessment, adaptation, and creative problem solving while grieving the loss of the effortless physical confidence you once took for granted. This connects directly to shocking truth number 3, which deals with something that might be even more difficult to accept. After 70, you become functionally invisible in a youth-obsessed society, and this invisibility extends far beyond just being ignored by younger people. We're talking about a systematic erasure from cultural relevance, economic consideration, and social discourse that happens gradually at first, then suddenly and completely. You become what sociologists call the living absent, physically present but culturally erased. Here's how this invisibility manifests in ways that will surprise you. In retail environments, sales staff look through you rather than at you, assuming you're not a serious customer or decision maker. In restaurants, servers often direct questions to younger companions, even when you're clearly the one paying. In medical settings, doctors may discuss your condition with adult children rather than directly with you, as if you're not capable of understanding or participating in decisions about your own health. But the invisibility goes deeper than interpersonal interactions. Marketing and advertising act as if people over 70 don't exist or have any purchasing power, despite seniors controlling a significant portion of wealth in most developed countries. Television shows, movies, and books feature elderly characters primarily as comic relief, wise mentors who exist solely to help younger characters, or tragic figures whose main narrative function is to die meaningfully. Complex, multifaceted elderly protagonists with their own desires, struggles, and character arcs are remarkably rare. Technology companies design products as if anyone over 70 is either too confused to use modern devices or has no interest in staying connected to contemporary life. Social media platforms optimize for younger users, making it harder for seniors to navigate interfaces, find relevant content, or feel welcome in online communities. Even when companies do consider older users, it's often with condescending solutions that assume cognitive decline rather than simply different preferences or learning styles. The workplace enforces this invisibility through both subtle and overt ageism. Older workers face pressure to retire not because they're incapable, but because they're seen as blocking opportunities for younger employees, using outdated skills, or simply not fitting the company's image.
Entrepreneurs over 70 struggle to get funding or be taken seriously by investors who assume innovation comes only from the young. Volunteer organizations sometimes channel older volunteers into limited roles that don't utilize their full range of skills and experience. Perhaps most painfully, this invisibility affects family dynamics. Adult children may love their elderly parents deeply, but unconsciously begin treating them as dependents rather than individuals with ongoing goals, interests, and contributions to make. Grandchildren get busy with their own lives and may see grandparents as historical figures rather than people with current thoughts and feelings. The elderly person finds themselves talked about rather than talked to, planned for rather than consulted, and gradually excluded from family decisions that affect them directly. This invisibility creates what psychologists call ambiguous loss. You're mourning the loss of your social relevance and cultural presence while you're still alive and mentally capable. You watch the world move on without considering your perspective, and you realize that society has written you off as a relic of the past rather than a person with ongoing value and contributions to make. The shocking truth is that this invisibility isn't just about hurt feelings or wounded pride. It has real practical consequences that affect everything from healthcare quality to financial security to personal safety. When society doesn't see you as fully present and relevant, it stops considering your needs, protecting your interests, or valuing your contributions. This brings us to shocking truth number 4, and this one might be the most psychologically challenging of all because it forces a complete reevaluation of what gives life meaning and purpose. After 70, you must confront the reality that most of your major life accomplishments are behind you, and the goals and dreams that motivated you for decades may no longer be achievable or relevant. This isn't about giving up or becoming passive. It's about undergoing a fundamental identity shift that most people are completely unprepared for. For your entire adult life, you've likely been motivated by forward-looking goals and aspirations: building a career, raising children, buying a home, traveling to new places, learning new skills, making your mark on the world. Your identity was largely built around what you were becoming, what you were working toward, and what you planned to achieve. Progress and improvement were the underlying assumptions of how you approached each day, each year, each decade. But after 70, the math of remaining time forces a different kind of reckoning. If you're lucky enough to live to 90, you've got perhaps 20 years left, and those years will likely include increasing physical limitations, potential cognitive changes, and certainly less energy than you once had. The traditional goal-oriented approach to life starts to feel not just unrealistic, but almost absurd. You're not going to start a new career, run a marathon for the first time, or master a complex new skill in the way you could have at 40 or 50. This shift hits high achievers particularly hard because their entire identity has been built around accomplishment, progress, and external validation. The executive who climbed the corporate ladder, the parent who successfully raised accomplished children, the professional who built a respected reputation, they all face the same existential challenge. What gives life meaning when the achievement phase is over? What is your purpose when you're no longer building, climbing, or striving in the traditional sense? But here's where the shocking truth gets even more complex. Society offers very few models for meaningful post-achievement living. The retirement fantasy of endless leisure time quickly reveals itself as hollow for most people. Playing golf, taking cruises, and pursuing hobbies might provide pleasant distraction, but they rarely provide the sense of purpose and significance that meaningful work and clear goals once offered. Volunteer work, while valuable, often feels like a pale substitute for the responsibility and recognition that came with professional roles. The existential challenge goes beyond just finding new activities or interests. It requires fundamentally changing how you define self-worth and success. Instead of measuring life by what you're achieving, you have to learn to find meaning in what you're experiencing, contributing, and understanding. This might mean shifting from acquisition to appreciation, from building to being, from doing to simply existing with presence and awareness. Some people make this transition gracefully, discovering that life's meaning was never really about the achievements, but about the relationships, experiences, and understanding that came along the way. They find deep satisfaction in mentoring others, sharing wisdom, enjoying simple pleasures, and being present for family and friends in ways they never had time for during their achievement-focused decades. Others struggle intensely with this transition, feeling like they're simply marking time until death, irrelevant and useless in a world that no longer needs what they have to offer. The shocking truth is that this identity crisis is nearly universal after 70, but it's rarely discussed honestly because it challenges our culture's fundamental beliefs about progress, achievement, and the purpose of human life. Learning to find meaning in being rather than doing, in presence rather than progress, in wisdom rather than accomplishment, requires a complete philosophical reorientation that most people attempt alone and without guidance. And that brings us to our fifth and final, shocking truth, which might be the most important one to understand because it affects how you'll experience all the others we've discussed. After 70, your relationship with time changes so dramatically that it reshapes everything about how you experience daily life, plan for the future, and understand your place in the world. I'm not just talking about feeling like time passes more quickly, although that's part of it. I'm talking about a fundamental shift in temporal perspective that changes the texture of consciousness itself. When you're young, time feels infinite and forgiving. You can waste years on the wrong job, wrong relationship, or wrong city because you know you have decades to course correct. Mistakes feel temporary, and major life changes always seem possible just around the corner. Your 30s, 40s, 50s, and even 60s are still largely about potential, about what might happen, what you might become, what you might achieve. The future stretches out like an open road with countless exits and possibilities. But after 70, time becomes finite in a way that reshapes every decision and every day. You stop planning in decades and start thinking in seasons. You realize that you might only see 10 more springs, attend 15 more Christmas celebrations, or have 5 more opportunities to take a significant trip. This isn't morbid thinking, it's realistic mathematical assessment, and it changes everything. Suddenly, every choice carries more weight because you have fewer chances to change course if you choose wrong. This time consciousness creates what psychologists call intensified present moment awareness. Colors seem more vivid, conversations more precious, and simple pleasures more significant because you know they're limited. A sunset isn't just pretty, it's one of perhaps a few thousand you have left to see. A conversation with an old friend isn't just pleasant social interaction, it's a finite resource that becomes more valuable as it becomes more scarce. The shocking truth isn't just that time feels limited, it's how this limitation affects your relationship with planning and hope. You want to plan for the future because having things to look forward to provides meaning and motivation. But you also know that long-term plans are increasingly uncertain as health, circumstances, and the health of loved ones become more unpredictable. This creates a complex balance between hope and acceptance, planning and letting go that most younger people never have to navigate. Your relationship with legacy becomes more urgent and complicated. You want your life to have mattered, your experiences to be remembered, your wisdom to be passed on. But you also realize that the world will continue spinning after you're gone, largely unchanged by your absence. Your children will grieve, but then get busy with their own lives. Your contributions at work will be forgotten as new people take over your responsibilities. Even your most cherished memories and stories will fade as the people who shared those experiences pass away. This creates what existential philosophers call mortality salience, a constant low-level awareness of death that affects decision-making, priority setting, and emotional responses to daily events. It's not that you're obsessed with dying, but you're aware, in a way that younger people rarely are, that your time is genuinely limited and decreasing every day. This awareness can be liberating, freeing you from worrying about things that won't matter in the long run, but it can also be isolating because most of the people around you don't share this temporal perspective. The shocking truth about time after 70 is that it becomes both more precious and more present, more urgent and more peaceful, more limited and more meaningful. Learning to live with this paradox, to plan hopefully while accepting uncertainty, to be present while acknowledging finite time, becomes one of the primary psychological tasks of late-stage aging. Now, having shared these 5 shocking truths, I want to be clear about something crucial. Understanding these realities isn't about becoming pessimistic or giving up on life after 70. It's about replacing naive optimism and cultural myths with realistic preparation and honest awareness. When you know what you're actually facing, you can develop strategies, build support systems, and make choices that account for these realities, rather than being blindsided by them. The seniors who navigate these years most successfully aren't the ones who deny these truths or pretend they don't apply to them. They're the ones who acknowledge these challenges honestly and then figure out